So David Haye has formally announced his retirement from boxing. I'm not going to read out the statement that he put on his website because it's a very long statement, but I do want to quote part of the statement. So I'm going to give you this part of the statement here. He said in 2015, no, sorry, let me start that again. In the statement, he says, I herniated a disc in my lower back 10 years ago, and years of intense training wore this disc away. This caused fragments of disc to push into my spinal nerve passage, resulting in chronic pain and loss of function in both legs, and an operation was required to put a 2 centimeter metal cage between two vertebrae and implant two metal rods with screws and bone grafts to fuse it all together. I went into surgery 191 centimeters tall and came out 193. Not a bad silver lining, but literally had to learn to walk again. This made my comeback fight against Mark Demori in January 2016 all the more meaningful, as it was only 10 months after such intrusive spinal surgery, as well as being my first fight in 4.5 years. So that is an insight, apparently, into the severity of just one of the injuries that David Haye was dealing with in the latter stages of his professional boxing career. Interesting that he said he gained 2 centimeters in height. Interesting that he went from 191 to 193. That's nearly an inch in height that he gained. He was always listed as 6'3", so if he gained nearly an inch in height, that would have made him nearly 6'4", unless of course he was never 6'3" to begin with, which a lot of people say he wasn't. Who knows? Also, some people are going to cast aspersions about the veracity of these claims that the injury was this severe, that severe loss of function to both his legs. At the end of the day, I think we can all agree that whether you think he had to learn to walk again or not, the injuries that he did have were a massive hindrance to his performances in the ring. I think we can all agree to that. The David Haye who fought Tony Bellew twice was simply not the same David Haye who fought Vladimir Klitschko, Enzo Macronelli, even Derek Chisora. It wasn't the same Haye. He was clearly a different man. And he said that he herniated a disc in his lower back 10 years ago. So that was 10 years prior to, I guess it's 10 years ago from now. Yeah. So he's talking about in 2008. I'm trying to see who he fought back in 2008. Okay, he fought Enzo Macronelli and Monty Barrett back in 2008. So this problem that he had with his back, he is basically saying he was dealing with that back problem for the Valuev fight, the Ruiz fight, the Harrison fight, the Klitschko fight, the Chisora fight. All those fights, he's claiming he was dealing with this herniated disc in his lower back. Perhaps the severity of it increased over time, so perhaps he might have herniated it back in 2008, but it wasn't until maybe, I don't know, 2009, let's say 2012, 2013. Maybe it wasn't until then that it got so severe that he felt like he needed to have surgery on it. And in fact, that makes sense, innit? Because why would he wait so long otherwise, particularly when he's in all these big fights? But whatever the case may be, yeah, Haye is retired, loads of injuries, serious problems with his legs, his mobility going into the Bellew fights. So it is what it is. And for those of you who haven't seen my career review for David Haye, I'll leave a link to it in the description below. I've said to people before, and I maintain this, that one of the reasons that David Haye was so injury prone is that he's not actually a natural heavyweight. He never was. He was always a guy who had to lift an enormous amount of weights, take a hell of a lot of protein shakes and supplements, and train extremely intensely to be able to, first of all, put on all that extra muscle and then be able to use that muscle in a functional fashion. When you're naturally only a 13 stone man, 180-pound man, and I'm telling you now, David Haye is that naturally small. I know some people are going to scoff at that and say that's a bit far-fetched. I'm telling you it's not far-fetched. David Haye is naturally a 13 and a half stone man, and I'm talking about in shape, doing normal boxing training without any supplements or weights or anything like that. He's a 13 to 13 and a half stone man. So even when he was fighting at cruiserweight, which is like 14 stone 5, 200 pounds, even at that weight, he was doing loads of weightlifting to bulk up to that size. I'm telling you now, right? David Haye, when he was an amateur, when he was like 17, 18 years old, he was light heavyweight. He was 80 kilos, I think is light heavyweight in the amateurs, or 81 kilos, whatever it is. That's how much he weighed. And when he got into the England team in the amateurs, I'm sure I read some admissions from David Haye where he said for a few of his fights in the amateurs, when he wanted to fight at heavyweight, 91 kilos, he put weights in his jogging bottoms for some of his fights so he could weigh above 80 kilos or 81 kilos and then qualify for the 91 kilo division. This is what he was doing. Why would you do that? Because David Haye was always desperate to be a heavyweight. It was always his dream to be world heavyweight champion. And so he ruined his body basically in quest for that dream. If David Haye had stayed at cruiserweight his whole career, I don't think his body would have taken so much wear and tear. But because he wanted to be a heavyweight and the enormous amount of weightlifting and insane amount of intense training that was required in order to fulfill that dream, because he did all that, that's what took so much of a toll on his body, in my view. And even at cruiserweight, as I say, he did plenty of weights and was training very intensely, but he had to up it to a whole new level again once he moved up to heavyweight. So that to me was one of the major factors, because he was just punching above his weight basically, because his real weight is not heavyweight. The guy is 185-pound man, maybe 190 at a push, naturally, when he's in shape, eating normally, not like dieting down like an anorexic or something, or a bulimic. No, I'm talking about like having a normal, healthy athlete's diet without all the protein shakes and protein supplements. He's a 13 and a half stone man. That's what he is. And it takes a toll on your body when you've got all that extra muscle on, you're moving it around very fast, and it's extra toll on your joints, extra toll on your spine. Think about all the extra muscle he packed on, upper body muscle he packed on. That's going to put an impact on his spine. His skeletal structure was not designed to carry all that muscle mass naturally. So yeah, it's going to put more impact on his spine and his knees, his ankles, everything. So anyway, as I say, if you haven't seen my David Haye career review video, click the link in the description. You can go watch that. And I'll tell you all about David Haye's career and what I thought about it. So let me know what you think in the comment section below, people. It's happening. I'm out.